You can't talk about Cuban food without talking about the Moros y Cristianos, or what we traditionally call in the U.S. black beans and rice. You know, there's a lot of history behind this dish that I don't think people are aware of. I wasn't aware of it until I really started studying Cuban cooking, for example. So the Moors of the Islamic Empire, they occupied the south of Spain from 711 until the discovery of the New World in 1492. As history would have it, the Catholic monarchs drove the dark-skinned Moors from Spain, and the Spaniards who colonized Cuba invented this delectable dish of black beans and white rice after this historical event. So let me start by sharing with you some of the ingredients. Now, number one, and this is the most important, I think, is that you need to soak 2 cups or 1 16-ounce package of black beans and then 4 to 5 cups of water at least overnight. I tend to do it for 24 hours, but not longer. All right, you're going to let this sit right here. You just set it right overnight. What you're going to add to it, in the ingredients that are going to go in, is you're going to have 1 pepper quartered. You're going to have 2 large onions, also quartered. 1 bay leaf. Several garlic cloves. Now, in our family, we like a lot of garlic. If you want to cut back on the garlic, you need to use a minimum of 3 large garlic cloves. Okay. We have 2 teaspoons of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, a 1/2 teaspoon of oregano, and about a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin. And then finally we have 2 cups of Valencia short-grained white rice. And then of course we have olive oil as well. So what I'll do is I'll take you through the steps and show you how Moros y Cristianos comes together for you and your family. Today I'm going to cook this dish in a pressure cooker. Now you can do it conventionally on the stovetop and it works perfectly well. But it's a Sunday afternoon and I want to spend a lot of time with my family who's coming over. So this is really, I wouldn't even consider it a shortcut. It's just a faster way of achieving the same thing. So we have our beans and water that have been soaking. They're here inside the pressure cooker. I'm going to add 1/3 of the green pepper, just a big chunk of it. I'm going to put my bay leaf in as well. I'm going to go ahead and lock it in place. I'm going to turn my heat up to high. And once this reaches its maximum pressure, I'm going to lower it down to medium and let it cook for 20 minutes. And that should be plenty of time for the black beans to soften up but not be mushy. Typically when I make Moros y Cristianos, it always starts with a sofrito, especially if I'm doing it on the stove top. Now today, like we discussed, I'm already cooking the beans in the pressure cooker. So I'm taking another little shortcut. It's Sunday, I'm allowed. So I'm using what would be traditionally the sofrito. I'm going to put it in my food processor. Okay, the garlic, the onions, I may have to pulse this a couple of times to get it down. And this way, you have your sofrito to go. So the next step, when I show you how to separate the beans from the juice, we're going to use this in the pot, and it's going to be the base of the recipe. At this point, the black beans have been cooked sufficiently under the pressure. So now it's really, this step is pretty important. You want to separate the juice from the beans. And I like to do it this way. I find it the least messy way of doing it. We're also going to wipe and clean this out before we continue on with the recipe. So I'm just going to set it down for a moment. The main point here is to make sure that you get, and yes, we do, that you have a minimum of 2.5 cups of fluid afterwards. If you have less than 2.5 cups, then you're going to have to add a little bit of water. If you have more than that, you can add it back into the pressure cooker and cook it down till it reaches 2.5 cups. But this, to me, I can tell by looking at it, by the way it feels and the weight of it, it's about 2.5 cups. I think it's perfect. So let's get our sofrito started. Now, Cuban sofrito is made up of onion, pepper, green pepper, and garlic. Now, sofritos, and I'll cover this in another episode, are different depending on the country. But for Cubanos, this is our sofrito. How I like to saute it is I like to use bacon fat, to be honest with you. It adds a lot of flavor, and you don't really taste the bacon, and it's just great. Then you add the sofrito right in on top. We're going to let this saute. You can see it here happening. Certainly hear the sizzle. We're going to let this saute in the bacon fat. And by the way, you can use lard as well. I would not use olive oil here. You need a high cooking point, and the lard really is perfect for sauteing the vegetables really quickly and yet not having them turn into complete mush, which you really don't want. So we'll let this cook for 3 minutes, and then we're going to add our 1/4 teaspoon of the pepper, our 2 teaspoons of the salt, 1 teaspoon of the oregano, and a 1/4 teaspoon of the cumin. That will go in here after this is cooked for about 3 minutes. I'll cook the seasoning inside the sofrito for about additional minute. I've been cooking the sofrito for about 4 minutes. I've just now added in the salt and pepper, the cumin, and the oregano, and I'm letting that also saute for about a minute. You don't want to overcook those. Just enough to get it really seasoned, the sofrito seasoned very, very well. Okay? Now we're going to add in, and I like to always add in the rice first. I don't know, it's just the way I do it. I like to make sure that all those kernels of rice are soaking up that sofrito. All those flavors are kind of getting inside the rice. Love that. Once we have the rice thoroughly coated in the sofrito, I'm going to go ahead and add the 2.5 cups of the juice. Now, there was something I didn't explain to you before. In many American kitchens, we would get rid of this. We would soak the beans overnight to reduce the amount of gas that they can produce, and then we would dump the water. But this is all the flavor. Cubans never dump the water, and this is how we get that rich, black, beautiful Moros y Cristianos. This is really like black gold. Look at that. It's so creamy from having soaked in the beans overnight. I'm going to incorporate that. I'm going to gently stir this around. Let the heat come back up a little bit. Now, lastly, I'm going to add in the beans because I don't want to beat them up too much. They're cooked. So I like to fold them in gently. I don't like my beans to be all broken up. Okay, I'm going to fold this right in. Get it nice and incorporated so that the beans and the sofrito and that black gold is very evenly distributed in the pot. Very important. Now I'm going to shake it down. I'm going to return the top. Put my stovetop on high. Let the pressure come back to 100%. But this time we're going to turn it down. As soon as this pressure reaches its maximum capacity, you're going to turn it down to low and slow for 5 minutes only. Do not do more than 5 minutes or your beans will start to break up and your rice will be mushy. 5 minutes, it's perfect. And then we'll see how it comes out.